Hi friends, my name is Doug. Welcome to the Third Stall Garage. This is my good friend Dale, and we've got an episode. We're working on restoring a 66 Beetle convertible. I wish it was my car. It's not, it's Dale's, but we're having fun working on it together. This episode is going to be just a summary info of what have we learned as we've stripped paint off the Beetle. If you can see in the background, it is 95% free of paint, and then eventually we'll ship it off to the painter to get it painted. But it's been a steep learning curve along the way of figuring out what works, what didn't work, what are the steps or the progressions to get a piece done. So you end up with a body panel. What, Dale, that a painter...
The painter told me when I brought him the body panel, a painter would be thrilled to paint that piece.
Our goal is to get the whole body looking like that to deliver to a painter. Doing it all ourselves, affordably as we can. Why? Because time is fun and it's free. Not that we have that much of it. But stay tuned. This episode's about what we've learned along the way. If you like learning stuff about this, want to support the channel, I'd love it if you'd hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. Leave a comment below. Stay tuned.
We mentioned this in a previous episode that we started out trying to use some either the citrus strip, or there was a aircraft stripper and the non-methylated version, and it just didn't work.
Wah,
So,
wah, wah, wah.
very sad. I spent I don't know how much money on a big gallon of this stuff, and they wouldn't take it back, so it's headed to the hazmat people. Chemical, not worth it. Not worth the money, not worth the time, and it didn't work anyway.
That's our experience, $80 lesson for us. That's what we'd recommend to you.
Yes. So what has worked in order to get a beautiful, I'm really proud of this, a
Look
beautiful
at that
fender that a painter would be thrilled to paint. It's a simple 6-step process. And so I've got my final piece right here. This hood is the beautiful blue, but I got to take it off.
Don't scratch it.
There you go. So the first step, what I've done is I found to start with a angle grinder and this knotted wire wheel. I bought that at Harbor Freight. They're $5. I bought a stainless steel one. Not worth it.
It's too soft.
Yeah, it's too soft. So this guy works really well. What I like about it is it doesn't wear down through the Bondo. The Bondo's really tough, and there's a lot of Bondo in this car. Not so much on this hood, thankfully, but a lot in a lot of places. And in many places of the car, it has 4 layers of paint. So it'll go through the paint, the primer, the Bondo, and you just gotta keep on moving through. But it doesn't give you all the way down to a nice shiny surface that a painter would be thrilled to paint. So the next step after that.
You got this from Harbor Freight, correct?
Yes.
You also tried was it a Norton brand from Lowe's or Home Depot?
It was from Lowe's, and
that was $10.
$10.
No difference.
No difference.
So spend the $5 at Harbor Freight. It does wear out over time. You'll notice that right before the brush dies, all the little wire pieces start flying all over,
yeah.
and you'll be pulling them out of your clothes and teeth and ears.
Which is, I mean, goes without saying maybe, but at the
it's better
same
to
time,
say things than not.
Yes. Wear a mask, ear protection, and apologize to your neighbors, because we've got hours around here of making a lot of noise, and then eye protection.
Yeah.
And the coveralls, not only do they look spiffy, but they help protect you too. Yeah. So that's the first step, and now you've got the paint, the primer, the Bondo all off, and it looks a lot like that. After that, that's when I went to this polycarbide abrasive disc. I started trying that, but you would wear through them so fast. Now, again, Lowe's sells them individually for like $11. I went on Amazon and I bought 10 of them for $5 each. And so that's my second step. I started out trying to do this, but I went through them too fast. It's like, boy, this is going to cost me a lot of money. So wire wheel, then this guy, and that gets you to the point where it looks like this guy here. If you're wondering why there's two hoods, this guy came from the VW Beetle. We've got a couple of panels that we're wondering if maybe the VW Beetle parts car might actually be better.
So for those of you that haven't followed the series, you really should. There's the Merriman Beetle. It's our parts car. That's why we've got two hoods. The original hood, and this is the Hendrick hood, and the Merriman Beetle hood. So this is the, what'd you call it, a carbide abrasive?
A polycarbide abrasive disc.
So does a decent job on the paint, but if you've got thick paint and Bondo, the Bondo and the paint chews it up. So finishing with that works better. Do be careful, keep moving on it. You don't want to get it hot, especially in the middle of the panel. That might cause warpage. So, but it does clean up to this point fairly nice. Now, Dale, this hood does not look as nice as that fender. How do we get there?
That's a great point. So then, now you're into just sanding. We've got a random orbital sander, and I started with 80 grit to 120, and then to 180, which is what the painter said that he wanted. And so when you do that, now you're in with all these just really kind of micro swirls in there. And so that turned out nicely. And that's great on something like this. But how do you get it inside the headlight bucket? How do you get it into all these nooks and crannies? You can't, is the answer. And so that's where we ended up. You've got a lot of curves in a Volkswagen Beetle. And so then we ended up being blessed with someone who was able to let us borrow their portable sandblaster. And so we had to learn about how to use it.
Thumbs up to coworker John. Thanks, John.
Oh my goodness, lifesaver. So I went to Harbor Freight, 80 bucks. I bought this and these glass beads, which really feel just like sand. Again, mask. And what I now have is chemical splash goggles so that it'll seal on my face, because otherwise stuff's flying in your eyes and whatnot, even with just the glasses. But getting this guy full enough so that it'll keep going through. As it gets down, then you start to end up needing to shake it because it's probably pulled the sand all in the bottom and it's gotten maybe a funnel for it or whatever. But that, you don't need a ton. Again, I've never done this before, but just it gives a nice little stream, and that allowed me to get into the headlight bucket, into all these nooks and crannies, and really was great. Particularly helpful when I did the door. The door has a lot of nooks and crannies, and I wanted to get inside the door, and so that's another piece that that just took a lot. And so now it's got a nice satin finish to it, and we're going to keep it dry so it doesn't rust. And this particular fender is ready to go. It's a nice fender. It might take a little bit of tweaking when we get finished, but there's no real problems with it. We've got some other places that I think we're going to talk about later. After we got all the paint off, it's like, okay, now we know what we need to fix.
Yeah, there's a few stress cracks, and we've got a few pieces with some dents and dings in them, so we'll be working on pounding those out so we use as little as Bondo as possible. Dale, where did you do the sandblasting?
That's a good question. We started trying to do it outside, but there was a breeze, and again, at 80 bucks, I want to save this sand as much as I can and just keep cycling it through, fill up the container again. So we moved it actually inside to second stall, not third stall. This is second stall. We'll put the door down and hang a tarp that hangs down. I drape it so it comes in toward me, and I try to shoot toward the tarp, and that tends to, it's certainly plenty dusty, but it's a lot of the sand gets caught in that tarp, and then I sweep it and dump it back in. And I've been able to keep, I probably only lose each time I'm dumping it in 5 to 10%. So I might have to buy another bucket, but I'm thinking I might be able to do the whole car with one bucket. And our plan is, once we get all these fenders and deck lids and bonnet and all of that junk done, we'll actually move the body of the car in here to get all the nooks and crannies of the body.
Yeah.
And that'll be a bit of a process. I'm sure it'll be something that we'll at least throw into the video.
Good to remember, if you're doing sandblasting with a portable tank like that, you need a good solid source of air. I've got another video about the air system. I've got 3/4 inch lines plumbed through the whole shop. They come down from, I think I got an 80-gallon tank above, plumbed through. Here's my water drop. So that's just from what we've used today. But you don't want to overrun your compressor. A lot of them have a 50% duty cycle, so they should only run 50% of the time. And air sandblasters use a lot of air, so you'll need good thick lines and a compressor that can keep up with it. So one last thing, Dale. We're not quite done with the body yet, but how many hours do we have into this total? If you're thinking of doing this to yourself, it is much easier time-wise just to drop it off at a sandblaster. We don't know how much that costs at 75 to 100 bucks an hour. Someday I'd like to figure out how much that would cost, maybe the next project. Speaking of next projects, now we'll talk about that some other time.
Okay.
Like if you're doing just a fender, how much time you got into just a fender, all the way from paint to you're done with, was it 180 grit?
180 grit and the sandblasting.
And sandblasting.
Yeah, by the time I did all 6 of the steps, I figured each of those pieces, fender or a hood or whatever, probably took about 2 hours. So, you know, again, we're doing an extra hood. We're going to do an extra deck lid from the VW Beetle. But just that is 20 plus hours of work. 2 hours for each of those pieces, the doors, the 4 fenders and stuff. And then the body of the car, that we were doing early on, when, again, this is some of the last warm weather, and so we were just blowing all the dust out of the garage.
Yes, it is a beautiful day in Michigan. Check that out. Gotta love fall. Sorry about the interruption.
So we were just blowing the dust out, but we had, of course, I was working on it. Ron was also able to help us out for a while. We probably put 40 hours of work into that as well. And the body had all kinds of Bondo in it, and that just takes longer to grind all through. And we were still learning, but it's not unreasonable to say that the paint off is a 60 hours
60
job.
plus.
Yeah.
Yep. Think about your neighbors. Grinding is loud. Every Wednesday night we're grinding for about 3 hours with several of us, and our neighbors are really patient, but they can hear inside their houses with their doors shut, and lots of paint dust. So definitely doable, way cheaper to do it yourself, a lot more control of it, but it's a significant undertaking as well. So good. Any other final closing thoughts?
You know, all you need is a willingness to try.
Love it. Way to go. Hopefully this is helpful. If you've learned things along the way too, post them in the comment below. If you are seriously considering this, thanks for watching. Read all the comments below so you can get other people's you know, their advice and their impressions as well, because you know, it's all opinions. This is what we've learned, but that's just our experience. So thanks. Have a great day. Be kind to each other. Take care.